good to see people eating already or drinking coffee. Remember, this is America. At least where I stand and sit in this country, we like it when people make money. I want a business like this to make money. One of the reasons we started these Cup of Joes about 1.5 years ago was because I wanted to go somewhere in the district every weekend, a coffee shop, a restaurant, and invite anybody to come talk to me. But you had to eat or drink, you had to order something if you wanted to ask me a question or spout off. We do that because I want this place to make a little bit of money this morning. So thank you for joining us. That's got a little music in the background. We also do this, folks, because, as you know, I made a pledge when I got elected that for better or for worse, there'd be no more accessible member of Congress than me. I do a lot of town halls. These are smaller than town halls. Typically, they're more intimate gatherings. And it's just an easier way for, I think, some people to ask a question or tell me what's on your mind without being at some big formal town hall. So it's a way to touch and talk to your congressman because, again, I'm an old-fashioned guy. Oftentimes, I'm accused by many people on the other side. I forgot, I was on some TV show and they said this, Walsh, you just want to take us back to something. You want to take us back to something. Well, what I try to want to take us back to, which I think is taking us forward, is just taking us back to the simple idea this country was founded upon. There was a debate last night, a discussion, and I was asked a question. What have you done, or what are you most proud of that you've done in your 1.5 years Congress that sort of deserves you another 2 years? And I talked about the balanced budget amendment, that my first bill that I introduced last year, that became a really big vehicle for the entire House last year. But the thing that I'm proudest of, boy, you are nimble as can be today. You're doing great. And there are 5 cameras watching you. Yes! The thing that I'm probably most proudest of is this. Remember, I've taught American government. When I'm done with politics, whenever that is, gosh, I want to go back and teach. Our founders had a vision that a farmer, anybody back then, could get up, go to Washington, D.C., spend a few years in Washington, D.C., representing their district. They go there. They don't go there to enrich themselves. They don't go there to make a career out of it. They come back home and then you go. And we are 100 million miles away from that representation. We now have Republicans and Democrats who have become professional politicians. They don't go there for a little bit of time. They don't go there to sacrifice. They tend to stay there for a long time. They tend to enrich themselves. Nice cushy deals when they're there, and then usually when they finally do retire, what do they both tend to be? Republicans and Democrats. Oh, they get a nice cushy job with a lobbyist. They tend to use what they did in office to enrich themselves. Most importantly, they forget about us. So when I said on TV last night that I say all the time, look, I sleep in my office. I come home every weekend. I turn down my health benefits, my pension benefits. Come sit. Star Wars! And I believe in term limits. I wanted to go to Washington to just help. Again, this has nothing to do with party, Republican or Democrat. By the way, there are about 60 members of Congress who sleep in their office. A lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans. It has nothing to do with party. I do it because I don't want to live in Washington. I do it because, good God, I want to live here. It's a reminder to me that I don't live in Washington. This has nothing to do with party. We have a lot of good Democrats and Republicans, and I think we're going to elect more of them who don't want to be professional politicians. But I wanted to show people, when I got elected, that an average guy like me, who's not a millionaire, by the way, does everybody know that I'm not a millionaire? Not a millionaire, has struggled financially, just simply, for better or for worse, whether you agree with me or disagree, ran for Congress because I wanted to do what I thought was best to help fix the country. And if people don't like what I'm suggesting, they'll send me home. It's not more complicated than that. But I am so sick and tired of professional politicians. And folks, I'm in Washington with 434 other members of Congress. And I can tell you, Republican or Democrat, most people that I serve with, they are professional politicians. That's got to change. Most people who I serve with, they truly don't believe it's your money. They believe it's theirs. It makes me sad to say that. Virtually every Democrat in Washington believes that. Too many Republicans believe that. That's got to change. That's got to change. So I'm done talking. Happy to keep drinking your coffee. Happy to answer any questions or get any thoughts you might have about any issue, big or small. You've got your congressman for the next 4.5 hours. Go.
So what's the next step? Like, how do you get term limits?
How do you get term limits?
I mean,
it's the $1 million question.
You talk about this, and it's one of the reasons that you're so popular. People, because even my Democratic friends are very much for that. So what is the next step, and how do you make that happen?
The same way they did with the president. You got to go away with the 20th
We got a seat here, we got a couple down there. And we've got one over here. No, don't jump over, come around. How do you get term limits?
What's the next step?
Oh, sorry. No, you're...
Okay, so what's the next step? So here's what I did. I've done 2 things so far. I made it a pledge, and I'm going to stick to it, no more than 6 years. So I'm trying to lead by example. And by the way, there are a few others. I think there are about, of the 87 freshmen, Republican freshmen, I think there are about 8 or 9 of us that are term limit people. I introduced a bill last year calling for term limits, because what we have to do is try to amend the Constitution like we did for the president. We're going to have to amend the Constitution and say no member of the House can serve more than X years, no member of the Senate can serve more than X years. That would have to pass out of both houses, and then it would have to go to the states, and 2/3 of the states would have to approve it to amend the Constitution. Is that going to happen? It could be real tough. The bill that I've got calling for term limits, take a guess how many of my colleagues have co-sponsored that.
3.
I think about 9. Better than 3, but about 9. So I went on a bill. Here's a good one, and I won't leave your question. I got on a bipartisan, Joe Walsh, got on Democrat Jim Cooper's bill last week called, and I've been talking about this, no budget, no pay. But it's a wow, because here's the deal. You know the House is supposed to pass a budget. I know this is a foreign concept because nobody does it anymore. Then the Senate's supposed to pass a budget, and then you come together in conference and you come together on a joint budget that you make law. There are some bills out there that say if you're a member of the House and you don't pass a budget, you don't get paid no matter what the Senate does. This bill says if you're a member of the House or the Senate and a budget that year, a year-long budget, does not become law, which means it has to pass the House and the Senate, nobody in the House and the Senate gets paid. It's beautiful because it forces the House and the Senate to work together. Lest we've forgotten, Harry Reid controls the Senate. The Senate hasn't had a budget in 3.5 years. The House has cobbled together budgets, way too short term. But this would force the House and the Senate to work together, no matter what party they are, or none of them get paid. Term limits, I think realistically, we're not going to get term limits till we reach a point where we have enough congressmen who have self-limited themselves that we can finally pass a bill like mine. Now, how are we ever going to get there? Here's what you're going to do. Well, and I know I've got good Democrats in the audience right now. If I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, I would not vote for anybody who's been in Congress for a long time. And I say that as a Republican. I've got a lot of Republicans I love. They've been there too long. Until people, you all say, I'm not going to vote for somebody who's been there 20 years, and Walsh, Duckworth, Roscom, Holtgren, Gutierrez, whatever your name is, do you believe in term limits? Do you want to go to Washington for 20 years? If you don't like the answers you get to those questions, respectfully, I love you, but I'm not going to vote for you. I want you to go there for a little bit of time and come home. I think until you all only vote for people who say, I'm a term limit guy, we're not going to change it. Now, a lot of people break their pledges, not everybody. So it's a constant battle to stay on top of them until we can get to a point where I introduce my bill and I get 100 co-sponsors and we literally do pass something out of both houses. Other thoughts, issues, questions, folks? Yes, sir.
Joe, what is the...
I'll repeat the question.
What is the thought of merit? In other words, what that congresswoman is worth. What they do. It's not just that they're in the office, it's what they do.
Well, here's what I think. And I can say this as someone who isn't a millionaire or a billionaire. It's not an easy job being a congressman. We all know what they're paid. In the House, I'm paid $174,000 a year. Now, to a lot of people, that may think like we're overpaid. If you think like we're overpaid and you want to cut our salary, that's something I'd support as well. I actually, it's a difficult job. You're doing a lot. Well, it's as difficult as you want to make it. I'll say that. Remember, a lot of Republicans and Democrats don't do what I do. And let me back up. Why don't most Republicans and Democrats work as hard as I do? Why?
They don't have to.
Why don't they have to?
Voters don't hold them accountable.
What is the most important thing in the world to most Republicans and Democrats?
To be reelected.
Get me reelected. And we know most congressional districts are carefully drawn to safely elect Republicans and Democrats. I don't live in that kind of district. That's not what I had last time. And you know, folks, that I've decided to run in this new district they drew to elect a Democrat. Most members of Congress don't have to work real hard to get reelected. They're in safe districts. Unfortunately, and I said this last night, much to Ms. Duckworth's chagrin, we are $16 trillion in debt. $53,000 right now, that'll change in a half an hour, on top of the head of every man, woman, and child in this country. We didn't get to this point because Washington fights too much. We got to this point because Washington gets along too much. Every politician, all they want to do is get reelected. So what do? Republican and Democrat. They promise people things. We keep promising people things and promising people things, and eventually we're broke. We've gotten to this point